There are bridges, bridges in the sky, they are shining in the sun. They are stone and steel and wood and water, they can change to things. They are languages and letters, they are poetry and all. They are love and understanding, and they're better than they are languages and letters, they are poetry and all. They are love and understanding, and they're better than there are canyons, there are canyons, they are yawning in the night. They are rank and bitter anger, and are all devoid of light. They are fear and blind suspicion, they are apathy and pride. They are dark and soul foreboding, and their so very wide. They are fear and blind suspicion, they are apathy and pride. They are dark and soul foreboding, and their so very let us build a bridge of music, let us cross the song. Let us span another canyon, let us ride. Oh, and if someone should ask us where we're up and bound today, we will tell them building bridges and they are on our way. Oh, and if someone should ask us where we're up and bound today, we will tell them building bridges and they are on our way. We will tell them building bridges.
We're off and on our way while we're building bridges. Welcome to Sunday on the Front Stoop Bridges Programming. This is brought to you by the HREM, the Human Renewable Energy Measure. And also, we sponsor Renew the Earth, which is a nonprofit group that we hope you'll support. And that we're going to be doing programmings on their boat, which will be Renew the Earth's solar boat. With us tonight, or today, is Suzanne and Jean. You can say hello there if I can get to the right thing. Let's see if I can do that. Okay, right there. There's Suzanne and Jean here in the studio, and Susan to my right, and Dennis Carius. Dennis Carius is on the phone. And I'm Jeff Beller. And we're gonna and Suzanne's gonna read the summary of what we wrote out.
Well, did you want to? Oh, that actually the summary is actually a description of the HREM.
Well, you'll hear the summary. So, and it's sort of a description of the HREM, and maybe we can try to get someone else to figure out a better way to promote it. But we just want to make sure this happens because we feel as though it's important. So Suzanne will read that.
The Human Renewable Energy Measure is an expression of our human physical commonality, the things that are physically real about what we all need to live and survive. Not our wants and desires, but our needs. These can be broken down into basically education, food, and shelter. And all of these can be expressed in terms of the energy units they represent. This is possible because they are real things. They are physical and measurable. The conversion of the HREM into a measurement is what is unique about the HREM concept. And it is what is essential about it. Humans need measurements in their day-to-day processes for accuracy and the closest thing to honesty, truth that we can get to at this point. We are suggesting that a human agreement is possible that asserts the life rights, education, food, and shelter of every person on earth, birth to birth, and that this agreement must be sheltered in our economics. It is an add-on to the economics as presently practiced, but its requirements must be satisfied before those of profit-making. Every person will be employed during years of their work life for the required approximately 1 day a week that will satisfy the individual work contribution to the society in return for the HREM. After that, a real free market is possible, and real creativity is possible also.
Does that make sense to you, Dennis? Dennis, does that make sense to you?
Yes, it does, and also I have on the screen, all four of you, I can see on the screen, so everything makes sense.
Right, that you can see us.
Okay, well, that's where we are now. So can you help us build on that, Dennis?
Or Jean or Suzanne can comment.
Well, Jean and Suzanne, yeah, why don't
Let people
Jean,
do it spontaneously.
this was Jean's idea, so let Jean.
Oh, real thing? That's
Yeah,
right.
it was your idea. Go ahead.
Well, I have a problem, with the REM in the sense that I don't have a problem with it. I have a problem how the best way to implement it or how the best way to make other people understand it, because I have a hard time understanding it myself. But it's not a hard thing if you think of it as something that's real. In other words, it's facts. I can make a funny joke and say, because I look like Einstein's theory was right. No matter how many years we go back to them, they're still right in the sense that the numbers are correct. And so once you have numbers for certain things, then you can build on them, even if they have to change a little bit with the way the human evolution expands and the way our consciousness expands. But still, those numbers will always be right, and they'll always foster a better way of living.
Of course, you can relate to those numbers.
Correct.
It'll keep you on a track that that is, what is it?
Accountable?
Yeah, maybe there's
Honest.
not a word for it.
Honest.
When I try to think of a word for something that would describe what humans have agreed on, through our evolution.
Responsibility to each other.
Well, that can be also considered subjective, but things that we, like we've measured and we know that are physical.
How
part of
responsible is
physics.
anybody to anybody else? That's subjective.
But
But you know that.
there is a word that I can't seem to bring.
Well, in other words, Dennis, we're always looking for the truth, right?
Oh, yes, right.
So if I told you today
Yeah, but
is
that's-
95 degrees where you are, you would know that's not the truth, right?
What degrees, how many?
95.
Wow, maybe if I were in Florida.
No, but right where you are. If I said, Dennis, it's 95 degrees where you are now, would you believe that? You would
Oh,
say,
no.
no, you're lying to me because I know the temperature is not that hot. The temperature may be 60 if you buy 60, or maybe 55. You'll give me a certain range that we believe is truthful, right?
I guess
Well, right, actually, you have the right digits, 9-5, only it's reversed. Right now, it's 5-9 out there.
59. So, but if I told you it was 60 or 58 or 61, you would say that's a reasonably close thing, right?
Right.
So we can agree.
So it's an agreement that I can't lie to you about. So and these are the
Because
same.
we've made measurements and we've created words that express temperature, and it doesn't just express it in a word, hot or cold, it expresses it how hot or how cold, the measurement. And the same can be done for what we need to survive. How many calories do you need? We know if you don't have enough, you're gonna die. So there are parameters for things that we measure that makes it possible.
Now, what we don't with people,
for us to measure them, they're
but
physical.
there's the other thing is anybody alive today is getting their energy units met as far as their food, water, and shelter, and some education.
But there's no guarantee that that's going to continue through their life.
But they're working for that. In some cases, their real work life, 15 hours or 18 hours or 20 hours in some cases a day to have those basic energy needs met. With today's technology, according to the people who can measure that, they feel as though with today's technology, 1 day a week or 1 hour a day would suffice. There's enough natural resources out there, even for the 7 billion people on the planet.
Right.
And there's enough technology out there to get those resources that they don't have to be in slavery. And that's where the HREM comes in, where we can say, 1 hour a day would give you your basic needs. But since most human beings are exactly the same, all human beings are exactly the same for their basic needs, but they're always different with their wants. And that gives you 6 days a week or 23 hours more a day for your wants. That's what makes us
And that's
different.
where creativity comes
That's
in.
creativity, whatever. You can call it, let's call
Invention.
it conventions, whatever you want to do. If you want learning, whatever you want to do, you've got the ability. So you got the free time, the excess time is what go ahead, Gene.
Well, I was just gonna say, let's call it intellectual property, because that's what the capitalists call it, intellectual property, and
Yeah, that's
they
true.
seem to hang on to everything using that thing. The only other thing I was gonna say is that we measure everything. I mean, we were looking at some old books just yesterday, and
That's right.
there's not anything that they don't have a measurement for how much sugar weighs in a barrel if you're gonna ship it.
Right.
And it's the underline of our capitalistic system, or most any system, for civilization. So it comes to a point where we should have a numerical number on what a person, physical number on what people actually need
On what they do.
for what they do, and they should benefit by, because everybody participates in the economic system.
That's exactly right. The thing is it's so, I don't guess it's an ironic thing, that everything that people are producing can be quantified, and we've measured it, as you said, with the sugar and stuff. But this is, they've forgotten that how is it being made? How is it being produced? That is the most valuable thing, is where it's coming from, and that's from the human contribution.
And our lifespan is 80 years of age, so we have to.
And for some reason, value, because it's only value in our economic system if it can make profit. That's the whole function of our economic system as we use it now.
GDP
is if it can make profit, and humans are not in that equation. They're just the product of our work is in that equation, and it's not even a real, that number. It's a result that enhances people who already have a huge stake in this way of using the economic system, because it benefits them extraordinarily and exponentially, of course that's very encouraging to somebody who's in that position. But for the rest of us who are just working, and it's a coerced system, as you suggested with what you said, Gene, that there's no way you can be born on this earth now and not be part of an economic, touched by this kind of economics in your life.
Even if you're in Africa.
Yes, and maybe some places are less so, because there's still a lot of subsistence farming all over the world. But
they're still affected by
if
it
you're in
anywhere in the world.
Yes, exactly.
And
more so in the more developed nations.
There was a unique phrase, I don't know if you wrote it down. I forgot what it was.
Common heritage was Gene that found this.
Yeah, common heritage we talked
of mankind.
about. Common heritage of mankind.
Let Gene describe where it was.
I was just reading over something about different treaties, and anyway, in one treaty they talk about the to protect the outer planets in the future, the Earth would have to have a common heritage of ownership. And I thought, well, that's crazy. We should have a common heritage of the Earth now.
Right.
That we all live on, so that we all can benefit by its natural resources and its beauty.
Otherwise, this common heritage that they think they're going to project onto other planets, we don't even know how to do it, because we're not even doing it here. So what we're going to project is going to be like what you're saying. The lawyers get involved. It becomes a legalese type of common heritage. And so that's a common heritage for the elites, for the people who can get their spaceships up there and say, okay, we got this common heritage settlement for this area, because we are part of Earth. I mean, once you project it, in the same thing we're doing here onto other planets that we might eventually, hundreds of years or more from now, have an impact on, it's obvious that the first arrivals are going to be like SpaceX, which is a privately funded situation.
But they're gonna want the
with
national.
extremely wealthy people, and they're gonna say, well,
We landed here first, we want the natural
yeah,
resources.
right, exactly the way
Not
that
the
we
best
do it
place.
here. You know,
But, however, Dennis, you're really involved with
and
the
it'll
out,
be legally right,
Dennis, you're really,
because they can create the
Dennis-
laws any which way
Dennis,
they want.
Dennis, you're really involved with the outer space exploration, right?
Well, he likes
The
this,
outer space, what?
you
Well, you
always
like the
talk
idea of
about
outer space,
stars
right?
and stuff.
Yes.
Well, did you know that there was a treaty that our governments came together with and said that it's all the stuff they find?
But once they start landing up there, all bets are
But they
off.
saying that
Sorry,
the
all-
original treaty.
the original treaty, you know what the original treaty said? That all these things that they find in outer space is common
Heritage
heritage
of
for all of
mankind.
mankind.
All the planets,
Did you
all
know
the
that?
moons.
No, but, I agree.
So what Gene is saying, if it's common heritage for all the planets, why isn't it common heritage right here on Earth for
For
all
mankind.
natural resources, for all education, for all technology? Common heritage, no one,
To all mankind.
to all
right.
mankind, no one person should own that.
Nor no one
Or
country.
should just
Or no one
benefit by it all, basically, actually,
Well, I have a question. Are there any countries in this world, I know there are 200 countries, but are there any of those countries like Cuba or over in countries that started doing this? I'm not saying that Russia or China, did a great job. I was happy when I heard of socialism, but then it went over to communism. It was going too far. But I think
Well,
socialism.
May I speak to that?
Oh, I really wanted to answer that. First of all, there is no such a thing that any country isn't affected by the economic system.
and we're trying to basically get away from that in the sense that the HREM is not a system in the sense that it's an actual number
Measure.
measurement, and it shouldn't be disrupted by any political system or anything,
Right.
in the sense that these are the things that
Paramount.
human needs
Right.
need to be met, and so as long as those needs are met, then any type of political system you put on that is only going to benefit by the fact that the
Numbers.
yeah, but by their common people will have the freedom to create a larger amount of intellectual property, which will then create more prosperity.
For mankind, not in money, but in quality of life.
Correct.
What were you going to do to change? How are you
Well,
going to do
I was gonna just speak a little bit to what Dennis was saying. There are countries that have experimented, with trying to provide for what within their little country or whatever it is. A lot of the Scandinavian countries have done very well with providing for their populations. A lot of countries have in their constitutions, that food, shelter, and education are guaranteed, are
That's the
are
head of the
in their
Constitution.
constitution. But unfortunately, the overall way that economics is practiced in the world puts pressures on these countries. Are the ones that want to do that are often highly in debt
If you go on,
because the other countries have pressured them or come in to get their resources and not having a give and take of returns that are significant for the population. It just remains with the elites, and but Scandinavia is still hanging on to, and Switzerland and other developed countries are still hanging on to a lot of their wonderful programs, and healthcare being one of them. Canada has a great healthcare, but all of them are being pressured by the way economics is happening now. There used to be longer vacation times for people in Europe. Now that's starting to erode.
listen,
That's just one indicator, and of course there's a lot of pressures now with immigration from other countries that are being starved out and bombed out, and the economics is pressuring them to leave their countries and and arrive in
Or
Europe to
wind up
try
in the
to.
woods, like in Africa, most people only live in a town, they're living in the woods and the jungles
Well, that,
for 20 years now.
yeah, some
No, but
populations who were
don't-
displaced.
But I don't,
But I'm just saying, Dennis, that in order for this to work, it has to be agreed on worldwide. It's not something that just, a couple of countries can have partial success with. We know it can be done, but we have to do it on a much larger scale.
okay,
It has to be
watch this.
a worldwide
If you go
agreement.
online, and this is what
All
Susan did.
Okay.
She looked at the constitution of many, many countries,
we
and
did
they
a
all
program on
say,
this.
we did many programs on
I
this,
think there's
They all-
probably,
20 or 30 countries.
yeah, that have
That-
in their
In their
constitution.
constitution, education, food, and shelter.
But-
Basic guarantees of their constitution, but they can't do it because the economic system is preventing it. So many countries have
This
this
is
in
their
their
intent, just like
constitution.
we would like to be a democracy here in the United
But
States.
we're not, we're a
not.
republic, we're a social republic
Right.
that winner take all. We definitely have a problem with the way our economic system is controlling our political system worldwide.
And it does this is worldwide. It's
Right.
not just
So,
here where
so
we
it's
have.
not a question of
it's
who's
pretty
doing a better
obvious.
job. It's a question of what the problem.
How do we spread it to the whole world?
And-
We understand as a species what is missing, and other
Yeah.
countries have tried to do it, and they're doing it as best they can. But now, with the economy getting so aggressively focused with the extra value going only to the very few, the extra value from our technology, from all our natural resources being
Labor.
funneled, I guess you'd say, shot to the very little part
But
of
there's
our
there's one other
population.
thing here
That this is now eroding even the ability of the socialist nations to
and it's not a question,
continue with what they're
and that's
doing.
because we're trying to divide it by words and feelings, not by numbers. However, the way we decide on how well a country is doing, it's decided in gross, their individual artificial line drew gross domestic product or gross national product. And then the world said, wow, you're a wealthy country because you guys got a big, huge amount of money working there. But if we change that, in other words, that's the agreement, the economic agreement now. So our goal is to change the gross domestic product or the gross national product, GNP, into BNM, basic needs met. That's how we should control, that's how we should measure a country, in basic needs met, in energy units, based on humanity's needs. And that's measurable and it can never be changed. That's where we're trying to go with this.
There are some aspects of that, food, shelter. Those are pretty obvious that those are measurable in what energy units they represent. I mean, food can be measured in calories. The materials and the effort used to make shelter can probably be measured in calories and in materials. But when you talk about education, it's a little more difficult sometimes for
But
people
that's
to
open,
see.
wide open, it's not measurable.
You have to have but if you're going to include that in the 3 essentials that can be measured,
It's part of life.
no, you can't just dismiss
It is part of life.
Well, it
It's a
is.
learning process.
We are always learning, is
Right,
what you're
so,
saying.
right. And
Well, then how do you equate?
you don't equate that in numbers.
No, I didn't say
because
numbers. I said
somebody-
energy units.
Well, you don't, the energy is life energy units. It's
You
part
mean
of your, it's
just our individual
Individual-
ability to stay alive?
individual, that's part of
Maybe.
part of the wants.
So you're saying that as long as we're alive, we're learning
Right.
one way or another.
And
It
you
can be
have to be-
formal learning or it can be informal learning
But it
that
has
we're
to
doing.
be,
Wait,
it has
may
to
I
be open.
please complete? Yeah, well, the formal learning has to be free.
Right,
Because you have
Open.
to open all possibilities for education. And most of our learning is not formal learning. It's, trial and error and all the things that we do in our lives, that teaches us,
if you're lucky.
what's
If you're
possible.
lucky.
But as long as we're alive, it is the life energy that that we're able to use in order to educate ourselves is
And-
what's measurable, is what you're saying, which has
See-
been, of course, fed by the
See,
calories.
right now, again, this is economics.
No,
right-
that's a little more difficult to
Well,
make
right
that.
now,
that connection.
the way it works is you want to go to school, which costs you money, to get a degree, which will give you a better job. So you can work making more money, so you theoretically have a better quality of life. Well, whoa, this is all insane because back 7,000 or 5,000, we don't know, but according to people who study this, the average person, the male, worked 1 day a week collecting its
Or one every
meat,
2 weeks to
or whatever,
go and get a
depending
big
upon how the natural resource was.
hunting,
And the female worked about 3 days a week for the family.
hunting,
Hunter-gatherers.
gathering, right.
So they had a better quality of life than we do now with all the technology and natural resources that we have.
As far as free time to do other things
So,
with your
and they,
time.
but they didn't go, they weren't in competition, they were in cooperation. And they cooperated, sharing their intellect. And the species would have never survived if they would hold back. In other words, don't eat the top of the rhubarb because you're gonna die. You learned that. So you only eat the bottom of the rhubarb, otherwise, and that's good. It's good for you. It's good for you. You like it. It tastes good. But if you eat the top of the rhubarb, so we learn that you can eat certain fish that are poisonous, but you learn that
What part of
that fish that doesn't matter.
Because somebody died
Poisonous.
eating
You
it.
learn that if you go against the bear with a Bowie knife, in most cases, the bear is going to win. So you can't get that meat with a Bowie knife. You're gonna need a lot of people together, and a lot of people get hurt. You learn these things. You learn if you kill another human being, they may want to try to kill you back. These are learned processes. We hopefully now today's market, we wanted to learn how to do something. Someone asked a question. So what do? You just type in the thing, or you even can talk to your computer now, and it gives you an answer. So we're constantly learning that you'd have to go to a library or go to a college to learn all the things that you can pick up now so simply.
Well, I'm just wondering about, that we're always defining the HREM as education, food, and shelter. Maybe we should be saying life education or life.
Well, I just think,
include the word life in there,
I just think
or
you can,
life energy,
you
or I don't know.
you lose a lot of things in the detail, but all education is what human
Because
beings. Look, a squirrel probably learns a certain amount of survival skills, or a bird or an animal, for the first portions of their life, and that's what they live with. I'm not sure, but that's the way I look at it. I may be wrong. We're all entitled to our own ridiculous opinions. However, human beings are always learning. It's the nature of the species. The only thing I think that human nature is our ability to keep learning, and we want to keep learning.
Well, let Jen and Suzanne
Go
comment
ahead.
what they think about that.
I'm just enjoying listening.
Okay. So
Well,
maybe Jean has a-
the education or the intellectual information, I only read a little bit about scientific things, but other things, basically almost everything on the planet now is somewhat being shared. There's always the problem of people holding back on different things that they discover and everything, only because there's a profit motive involved.
possible profit in the future.
Right. So there is a certain amount of intellectual property that doesn't get put out there, but as long as the intellectual property is put out there for everybody else to study and understand, then education could always be free. But I think the most important thing that I get from the fact that they include the word education is the fact that all children from the beginning should be educated highly. There's no reason why we don't educate our children up to a certain level, just
with everything we know.
Yeah,
it's-
we do.
Yeah. Well, we don't.
No, really.
What we do the
withhold.
best we can.
But right now, depending on what area of our country you live in, the schools are in varying degrees of ability to
Because of money.
convey. I am
Correct.
coming
That's
to
what-
that. Yes.
Some of them, that's not just money. Some of it's because of a philosophical difference in what's important or what's true.
Yeah.
What's true to one person isn't true to another. So if you have a
They've
group
made
of
some
people that
decisions.
don't believe in
Books.
climate change,
Oh,
for
yeah,
instance,
right, they
they're
won't
not going to talk about it.
Right, exactly.
Right. In
Or-
books in general.
Yeah, and books have been
Well,
banned
but
from
that's all-
various
Books have been
schools.
banned.
for
That's still
various
part,
reasons,
now that
right.
goes back to the economic system, I'll tell you why. Before we had Judaism, which is 5,000 years old, you had paganism. And we had to talk about this with a very religious friend of ours yesterday, who's a preacher, and he looked at paganism and said, that's terrible. I said, no, paganism looked at the physical reality of life, and they believed in the sun god, the wind god.
Because they didn't know yet what they knew that the sun was essential, but they didn't do any quantifying at that
Right.
point, like we've done now
But
through
then,
science.
as that,
How much you need or
as
whatever.
the,
Let me interject one thing. But they knew that those things were the most important things for their needs.
Right.
And wants.
Yes,
And
then they needed wants
and then,
later on.
and then
They
once you got,
worshipped
then
it,
once you
right.
got abundance, as we had excess, then all of a sudden the Jewish religion came on with only one God, and then that was
Well,
5,000.
actually, the Egyptians invented the one God.
Well, either way,
But
we
anyway,
got
you
one
can go
God.
back in there.
And then they said, well, since the Egyptians had their kings and their rulers and their pharaohs,
Right.
and they said, well, there's one God, you got to believe in the one God theory, but I'm also the God because I'm a pharaoh, and I need your money, your labor,
So I can
and
go to.
so I can go to heaven,
Right.
and I'm going to
Doesn't
build,
mean
and I'm going to go
Build,
pyramids.
prepare heaven for.
And then you had, so you had
Judy.
then the Judaism started. Wait a second, this is
That's
all
sort of
wrong.
like the trickle down theory.
Yeah,
we've got
the
now,
opposite
right.
way.
Doesn't
And then,
work. It doesn't.
and then after,
We're still thinking it could work.
I
and
wish
it
we could
doesn't
get, I wish
work,
we could get a
right.
really good anthropologist on this program, but I'm trying to explain this the best as I can. So then you had the economic system where there was they put their people in
Like
slavery.
Trump would say, "Oh, I create jobs."
Well,
That's what the Pharaoh was saying.
well, the thing is, what
But what kind of jobs?
I'm trying to
right?
explain is that
Build
once you had
pyramid.
abundance, they made a king or a pharaoh, and the pharaoh said, "I'm now the king, and you are now you're my constituents or my slaves," which is happening now. We're the constituents. We're actually the slaves,
Yeah, but
and then we work and keep our kings, and our kings are all the wealthy people, the elites. Our kings are still the elites. Then after they had the pharaohs or the Jewish group, then you went to, they said, wait a second, we got to divide this even more. We're going to have the Christians. And Jesus, theoretically, I don't know for a fact, the books are written for the Old Testament, New Testament, so they always make the New Testaments, but it divides everyone up so they can still make more money. It's very similar to the way we divide our countries up on the same planet. Then we divide our countries into states, and then we divide our states up into towns. Well, each one of these divisions creates money for different groups. If it was one simple world, and we all agreed that the social agreement was everyone's going to have their basic needs met, in energy units, you wouldn't need all this division other than if you want to travel somewhere, so you know the point of where you are to where you want to go, and you can measure these in miles. But you don't need it for the laws to take away your life's work. How many people spend hours a day just doing paperwork that means nothing? How many people a day spend hours trying to get to
that's
work?
subjective. Does it mean nothing? It may mean something if they're making a living.
But they're making a living doing nothing that helps humanity. It's normally move paper to move money to point A. It's just people who work for FEMA. And FEMA is a money thing. We have a physical problem. But the hurricane hits. So we got to get somebody to switch money over to help the people with their basic needs because they don't have them anymore. The hurricane wiped crap out. They took away their shelter. They wiped out their food supply. They wiped out their water supply. So we put a money thing in there to get that back. Well, let's just get it back without the money involved, without the paperwork. And if the whole world understands that all basic needs must be met, and if a country lives by the BNM instead of the GDP, there would be tremendous amount of good things happening for least amount of time.
Well, the BNM, you mean
BNM, basic needs
No.
met.
Okay.
Anyway, does that make sense to you, Dennis?
Oh, this is very interesting because I really think our country gave free. Now, I'm not saying free like free food or free, residence, but we gave free education to grade school and high school in this country. Now, we could easily include free college in this country because any kid who graduates high school is smart enough to go on a computer and learn 95% of what they're learning in college. And then the only 5% that the teacher has to do is take the test to prove that that student did that. But in this country, when a student is 18 years old and graduates from high school, we don't have free college because we never have to ask where our troops are coming from in Afghanistan or over in Iraq. Our troops are coming because some kids graduate high school and they cannot afford college, which is so expensive in this country. And then they're told, well, look, just go over it. The Army, the Navy, the Air Force, go over for 4 years. When you come back, you can afford college. I mean, that's good.
But the point of affording the college is to get a better job, right?
Right, and believe me, I'm not saying it's good that we do that. But, right, I really think that.
I think we got off topic though for a minute here, Dennis. That was not.
And there are countries right now that provide free college education to their populations,
But that's
like
not.
Germany.
But that's not enough.
So
We see, it's not just, it's the whole concept of the economic system. He was gonna say something.
No, that's fine. Go ahead.
No, I just wanted to, we need to make sure we get the measurement into place. And all of a sudden, all the things you're talking about will stop. We talk about a dysfunctional government, but it's actually a dysfunctional
with a more
economic system.
and with a more educated population, because education is totally available as much as you want to take advantage of. You've got a population that's going to change dramatically. There won't be as much, there won't be such a lack of understanding of differences between people. Oftentimes, groups are demonized because people who feel they're being oppressed in some way, they need to find some reason, and if there's no obvious reason and they can't figure out why or how the economic system is oppressing them, through education it becomes clear how that's happening. But that also through education, you become familiar with other ways that people live, other ways that people worship, other ways that they become non-threatening, and they can't be made into scapegoats for the purposes of people who want to distract populations from what's really happening. In the physical sense, what's really happening.
Physically, what's happening.
Yes. Yeah.
Physically, I mean, I'll give you you know what I mean by physical, Dennis?
Yes. Yes.
What do I mean by physical?
Well, something you can touch, something that's hard, something that's
Something that
real.
actually impacts you. It's real
Like
life.
going to the bathroom is physical. You can't not go to the bathroom. Eating food is physical. Sleeping is physical. If you're in pain, it's physical. That's why you go to a doctor. You can't change physical things, and that's what we're measuring. We're measuring the food, the water, the shelter, and we're saying to learn about these things, we need to have the education as a species. It is physically real. It's a real thing. It's not arbitrary. Go ahead.
Well, I just want to say that if you have a pay-to-play educational system like we do in the higher educational system, then you always have it controlled by the elites in the sense that, they have peer reviews and they have, your degrees and everything. So you always have an obstruction to, pure education.
Control.
It's called a meritocracy. Everything by merit, by degrees, right?
Right.
Exactly.
So, some of that needs to fall by the wayside, just like some of the things we believe in now that don't benefit mankind.
They don't serve us.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because when we went, from hunter-gatherer situation, which we did for more than 1 million years, to the transitioning to settled communities and agriculture allowed this to be possible. The domestication of plants and animals, food animals and food plants. When we did that, and the stationary populations, maybe not too far from each other, but far enough so that they felt, that this was theirs and that's theirs, and often there were different languages spoken in these two groups. Everyone had a different, had evolved a different kind of language. And there were then, the necessity for modes of behavior to be established amongst the people in each little group, because it's like suddenly a group that was moving anywhere, mostly the whole world was open to them if they wanted to migrate, but they would
They were nomads.
Yeah, and suddenly you're like trapped on a smaller piece of land, almost like going from living generally as we do to living on a boat. I would compare it to. There are a great deal of accommodations, and there's not as much personal space. People may get aggravated with each other. There has to be conflict resolution within the group, and the evolution of laws, and then also the material that they're able to produce in these circumstances. They can make enough food, and they can raise enough animals, so they probably most of the time had more than they needed for the year, and they could then go over to the next year. Sometimes it wasn't that case, but that's why they did it, because they didn't want to have some kind of scarcity that was more common probably with the migrating than with staying stationary. And so once they had, this little bit extra, maybe the group over here didn't have it, so then they may have conflicts where they want to come over and say, look, we can give you this for what you got there, because we really need that, and hey, can you use some of this stuff, in exchange? And that would work until there was scarcity in both places, and then, then you have the possibility of one group robbing another. And now this need for laws to evolve, but laws that were evolving around commodities.
Making money.
And making exchanges first, and then people figured out how to benefit just their individual status or their individual family by taking possession of the best land or the best animals, or only being, keeping a secret how they had a certain kind of grain that was really good for this area or something like that, and then they would always have a little more grain than everyone else. You know how this would evolve, and all these laws and accommodations and stuff were evolving around the exchange of commodities, but not around the life quality of life that the people had. Because by just happenstance, people were able to continue to, and of course there was a huge population growth because there was more available for people to
because of technology.
Because of the technologies
And
they evolved
energy,
and communicated
and
about. And education was exchanged, but it was also hoarded, because if somebody, as things got more technologically, like the notion of navigation was kept very secret among just the people, the pilots of the boats that were doing the initial trading, as far as they didn't tell people how they were able to navigate. These were very important secrets, and they would then make deals with the most
Leaders,
powerful leaders, and they said, okay, yeah, this is cool, you tell me that, I'll give you some rewards for this, and you give me that, and that's all these things. I mean, I can see how we ended up as we are thousands and thousands of years later still with the emphasis on commodities and still with the emphasis on controlling the profit from these, and ignoring what we knew for a million or more years of our evolution, that everything needs to be shared so that people can live first.
But
The essential needs need to be shared so that people can live, not, it's like a free for all for the essential needs. You can't, the species is not going to be able to, we're going to actually a balloon point as far as I can see at this,
What we're doing,
And
the balloon
it
point,
may expand
the
a little
balloon point you're
further, but
talking
it's
about,
not
the
gonna
balloon
start-
point you're talking
yeah.
about is we are polluting our air, our life support, our water, and our ground. That's going to burst. And
Yeah.
once that happens, there's going to be
There's
lack of
a
food.
finite
There's going to be lack
amount
of
of these
food
things,
because
right.
once the atmosphere changes and once the
Well,
no one really
climate
knows.
change is going to put
No
incredible
one
pressures that
really
we
knows
don't know
what's going to happen.
totally
But I just
what
want
they're
to
going
bring
to
something
be.
out which has happened in my lifetime, and it was very interesting to see how technology grew. And I know friends of mine. I had my grandfather. When the TV set first came about, most people didn't have a TV set, and it was black and white. So what he did is he found there was a show called Bonanza, and you people who were younger out there. We have a lot of followers, by the way, on our program today. And for you people who are listening, there was a show called Bonanza, and we didn't have color TV sets. So they had a piece of plastic that went over the top of the screen, and it had blue, and it had green, and it had brown.
Hey, that's all you
And
need.
for one shot on Bonanza, you had a color set. My grandfather bought one of these color TV screens that you sort of put on the.
Just the introduction, right?
And then he also liked
Credits.
he also liked the way of remote control. Well, nowadays everything's remote control. And he had it was a bulb, an air bulb, and there was only 13 channels then, and there was went from off to 2 all the way around to 13, and then you squeezed it again and it went to the off position, and that was the remote control. And it was a piece of tubing going over to this bulb, like you pump up for your blood pressure, and well, now you don't need to do that. You push a button on your blood pressure, but everything is. And now we've evolved to a point where I have a friend of mine. He sits in a big chair, and he doesn't get out of the chair. Everything he's got is in the size of the armchair, and it's remote control, and his Bluetooth, and his video, and we have wireless phones. Human beings are always changing.
It's like the pharaoh on his throne.
Right. Human beings are always trying to make the object of labor is to gain leisure. To gain leisure, in most cases, gives you free time so you could think and enjoy life. Today, compared to 6,000 or 7,000 years ago, we are in total slavery and we don't even know it.
It's come very gradually, like the boiling of the frog.
But we're proud of that too.
Right.
Look at the
No,
technology.
I know,
Now, there
I
are
know.
a few of us, and I'm one of the few, who feel very lucky because I have this free time to be able to bring you this program.
Yeah, but you worked very hard to get to this point.
We have equipment that I've been able to use. We have the people here who are visiting. They are very lucky to have free time and smart because they could.
No, they worked hard.
They also could be still working to make more and more money. I know the same person I know with the armchair, which is trying to deal with, he doesn't want to move. He's still buying land and he's buying electric.
He's speculating.
He's speculating to make more and more money. And he spends a lot of his life working on this, which is his privilege, and I think that's fine. However, and I don't believe it's greed, it's what he's been trained to do. He's schooled himself, this is what you do. I know people who work the stock market. They spend hours and hours in front of the computer trying to make more money. And when they get more money, when they make a good deal, look how much money I made. I have a friend of mine or a very close acquaintance, and he's retired, has a tremendous amount of ability for free time because he has a lot of money. But he's buying more.
Smart.
He's a smart guy. And he's buying more and more home because he wants more. I mean, this, at what point in time?
Because this was our training all our lives. And so now when you suddenly do, some people do at some point have a pension or enough resources so they don't have to work 9 to 5. They don't know how to change the habits of a lifetime, and it's very, very difficult.
The other thing is, because they're so schooled in this, people who actually were forced out of jobs because their mind wasn't as sharp, or the younger people took over the companies, or they downsized the companies, or laid off people to make more money. They had people now who, well, they had pensions, and they said, well, I got to retire. Well, you talk to somebody, if you go to
and then they think they're useless.
If you go,
but that should be really the beginning of actually being even more effective.
Well, my point, the point I'm making is, if you walk into a Walmart, in some cases, and I talk to people when I walk into a big box store, and they're older people, and I say, what are you doing here? You're retired.
Mm-hmm.
What did you do before that? Well, I was an engineer for such and such, but I got, I'm bored stiff. I have nothing to do.
Why
so
don't they
I'm a greeter.
Yeah. See, that's
because
all
they've never been schooled that there's so much out there you can do. You don't need to play golf, or you don't need to go horseback riding or fishing. I mean, when I know and where I hang out, when I'm in Florida, where it's retired, they've all got to do something that doesn't help anything. They want to play golf. They want to go fishing. And that's all they think about. And their grandkids, and then all they do, they're focused, and they're not doing anything to really help their grandkids out. They got to be there for Christmas, New Year's, Thanksgiving, but they're not doing anything that's going to benefit those children when they're older, when they become adults.
Well, Jean was saying to a friend of ours last night, our friend, he was saying, oh, well, it's getting colder, we're getting ice in another part of the planet, and there's no such thing as climate change. And Jean was saying to him, you just say what you said, Jean.
I just told that was already a done deal. There was no turning back to that. I mean,
and the examples that you gave, because physically you've seen them.
Right.
Yeah, and
Yeah, well, we know that where they launched the first moon rocket, or the rocket that went to the moon, they can't use that pad no more, Cape Canaveral, because the high tides come in and cover that area. So you have parts of the planet that are already being inundated by sea levels.
Being affected, permanently.
All the cities, like coastal cities, they all have plans in place for this. They all have plans in place to accommodate.
This very smart person is saying that is he doesn't want to face the physical reality
and Jean
of what's
made another
going
point
on.
that, he said, your grandchildren are going to see this.
You may not.
And because you deny it now and are unwilling to move in any direction that might, slow it or retard it or stop, eventually make it possible for us to, deal with what's coming. I mean, the results are already, there are many that are irreversible, but there are, still, this is being impacted because we're not changing our mode of operation, and people who can't allow themselves to feel that our human impact is doing this to our planet, they are damaging their own grandchildren's lives.
I read a quote and I wrote it down because I thought, it was really interesting, and it's real simple. It's the future doesn't ask anything of us today.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't really, if you want to ignore the future, doesn't ask you for anything today. And that's the problem is, he can't see the future.
He doesn't want to see.
He doesn't want to see what the future, the impact of his grandkids. So it's not asking anything of him. He's not going to live the future.
And that's the problem with even our professors, our liberal friends, our professors.
Well, it also is the future. It's not the present, and he lives in the present. Of course, he's got his hands full, as everybody does. Everybody has things.
But he doesn't want to face the fact that he may have to add another layer to his life to try to help promote a better future for the world, and that's in the economic world. And we're so schooled. We are all schooled in this same problem. However, there's another part to this, and the part to this is, we do not want to see anything change. And that's where I'm going to get back to
Well,
the guy.
change is
I want to
disturbing.
get back to I want to get back to the guy with the remote controls. We all love to be
In control.
we all like to be. First of all, most people don't like to leave their surrounding areas because it's scary. It's work. It's a lot of work to go ahead and travel from point A to point
Or
B.
even to travel in your mind into a different idea
That's
that
what I
you're
was
not
getting at,
comfortable
right.
with, right?
And it's very, now what we're suggesting is, it's not that scary. And I'll give you another quick thing because we're running out of time. But I used to sail a boat and I was very much afraid of reefing a sail. I mean, boy, you got to reef a sail on a bigger storm. You got to bring your sail down. You got to tie it up and the wind's
Well, you have to
blowing.
explain what reefing
reefing
is.
Reefing is bringing the
Dropping it
sail down to a certain level, tying it up so
Making the sail
making it
smaller,
smaller, so the
essentially.
wind doesn't tip you over.
so the wind
So it's
isn't,
really
it isn't grabbing as
And
much
they
wind.
have reefing points, holes in the sail, where you take a piece of rope and you tie it to the mast.
So
Then
that
you,
it's
then you bring
Instead of
your
this
sail
size
up.
sail, you have
It's a
this
smaller
size
sail,
sail.
Okay,
and
gotcha,
heavy
right.
wind.
It's still a sail.
I was
Yeah, it's
always
still a
really
sail.
afraid of reefing a sail. And the person I was with said, you're this afraid of it, just reef your sail now.
When you're not
So what do you
needing
mean?
it, don't need
Well, you
it.
don't need it, just go out and reef
Practice
it.
it now.
Yeah, do it. And once I did it, it was like so simple and so stupid of me being fearful of it that we did it. So big fear. And the same person who's this smart.
Well, if you have a sheltered place to practice something that will change, then that is an optimal
Right.
type of situation, but it's not
but
always.
it's not that hard. It may be harder in a storm, but it's not that hard to do at all. So why am I afraid to do it? The same fear is what the same person who is well educated is afraid of change. The person who owns lots of land, who doesn't need more, really wants to make more money because he's fearful of not having the money.
Oh, yeah, they're
It's
just as fearful of change, of their lifestyle
being
changing
changed.
dramatically.
I may have to
And
get up.
in the face of their friends losing status, or jobs, or having to move, or, all these things affect.
Let me
the
just put
elites,
that
too.
real quick in the opposite direction. See,
Mhm.
I see what the Herman educational thing is, that, you can bring these younger people that don't think they have any future, if they have a stable home life in the sense of food, shelter,
Mhm.
and then they can get some education, they would be greater entrepreneurs, and the whole society
Oh,
would be a
yeah.
whole lot better
That's-
off, as opposed to what we consider what we're doing today.
We are actually leaving out the creativity and the inventiveness of, I'd say, 90% of our human population.
The bottom
We-
half, at least.
Yeah,
Well, no, it's
exactly.
much.
And I don't like to refer to levels with this, because that's what we're doing, we're trained to do.
We're trained to measure things.
Right,
Right.
but the way we're measuring our humanity is degrading our humanity. We're saying, oh, these are people up here, these are people in here, and these are on the bottom. This is ridiculous, because that separates us, just like you say, we separate ourselves into nations and religions and all this stuff.
Divide and conquer.
But that's another way to divide and conquer, and our commonalities are much stronger than anything that we are being told should be our differences and should keep us apart from each other and keep us from helping each other.
Anyway, we are here. Thank you all for listening. This has been Sunday on the Front Stoop by Bridges Programming. And we'll be back.
And think about the common heritage of mankind as the earth. I think that's a nice concept to keep in mind, because we're certainly not going to be able to extend the common heritage of space to mankind if we can't do it here. We'll just have the same kind of avoidances and laws built around planets that secure any kind of resources and value that may come from those places, and secure it just for people who now control those resources here.
Well, thank you all for listening. Thank you, Jean, Suzanne, Susan, Dennis, and I thank you all for listening. I'm Jeff Bella. Tune again Wednesday on the Front Stoop. Wednesday, World Call In. And I want to thank the 12 or 15 people who are listening live today, which was really amazing. We'll see you then. Thank you, Dennis.
Those are all Dennis's cousins.
And I want to thank your partner for helping you with your computer.
And your breakfast.
And don't forget your breakfast.
Thank you, Dennis. Bye-bye.
Bye.
We can get our energy from corn and grass and trees. Even trash converts to biofuels. Break loose from the stranglehold of oil companies. Renewables can fuel the world. We're here to spread the news of energy, energy. It all comes down to energy. I wonder where the money's gone. Well, here's some fuel for thought. It all comes down to energy.